So I wanted to revisit the video I had the other day on friendship and salience. And when I woke up this morning, I immediately, sorry, my head is white up here because there's a sunlight, winter afternoon sunlight enters this room at an odd angle. And sorry, it just looks like I have illumination on the at the top of my head. At any rate, I'm sure it means nothing. But what I was thinking about this morning when I woke up, after I talked about friendship and salience, is that uh, why do we need friendship? Like, what is this thing about, and what is the what is the sort of the benefit of salience? And of course, salience is sort of our sense of what is significant, what is important, and I would argue that ultimately this brings us to questions of what is real, which I think is the only real question. Sorry to double that, but I think that's the most important question that we ask all the time: what is real? And it's way more complicated than I certainly thought it was. But I have had an intuitive sense of it. But at any rate, friendship, as I said, friendship is sort of a way in which we outsource uh, gaps in our salience, right? And I was thinking about Macbeth and Shakespeare's Macbeth. And if you know about Shakespeare's Macbeth, he is a remarkable warrior. In fact, he saves Scotland for King Duncan. But he's also a man of ambition. And unexpectedly, he and his friend Banquo, on their way back from the battle that they've just won for Scotland, encounter three weird sisters. And I love the way that Shakespeare doesn't really call them witches all the time. He calls them the weird sisters because they're kind of strange and uncanny. They're kind of otherworldly. And so, in one sense, you can think of Macbeth as a kind of disclosure event in which, a flap, a contact event, maybe something along those lines. That's kind of in the news as of late, something I've been following. But they both see the weird sisters, and the weird sisters, of course, are behaving like weird sisters. They say strange things. And Banquo, Macbeth's best friend and kind of right hand man, uh, says almost immediately, I want to say that you are women, yet your beards forbid me to interpret you so, right? So the data that he's kind of absorbing is ambiguous and contradictory. They look like women, but their appearance is otherworldly. They're sexually ambiguous, and all these kinds of things. And so, anyway, Banquo is um, concerned, I guess, that what they're seeing maybe isn't real. But they both see the sisters, and then the sisters tell Macbeth and Banquo certain things, and they make certain predictions later on. Now, in the aftermath of this, Banquo warns his friend that, look, we're not really sure what those things were, but maybe they're not good. And it should be noted that Macbeth is immediately struck to the quick. He is mesmerized by what they say, and he is captured, captivated, enraptured, or all the words that they're using, because they say something that really deeply resonates with him. And it turns out later on that what they predict has been something he has actually been actively thinking about with his wife. Put that on the back burner for the second. But his friend Banquo says, "Look, man, oftentimes evil beings will give us small little trifles that are true, sort of win us in confidence, and then they kind of, while we're not paying attention, kind of lower the boom on us. So, like, let's kind of take this with a grain of salt." Now, as Macbeth's ambition swells, he decides that he's not going to simply wait around to be king. He's going to take it. And he works in league with his wife, his nearest partner in grace. Again, a kind of this sort of this relationship. And so she's, of course, very concerned that Macbeth is not going to, she says he's too filled with the milk of human kindness to sort of take a crack at this right away, the shortest path to his ambition and really rakes him over the coals for it. So he's like, okay, fine, 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 I'll do it. So they do it. It's a mess. It's a meltdown. And as the story unfolds, Macbeth realizes that Banquo is a threat for some specific reasons in the prophecies, but Banquo has the other person who has seen the weird sisters, and so therefore it's kind of a big deal. And so he hires assassins to kill his friend Banquo. And so Banquo, at this moment, the very thing that Macbeth needs in order to have a confidant and a friend is gone, and gone because you killed him. And so he has sacrificed his friendship for his ambition so that he can secure his line of kings, that kind of thing. And significantly, of course, that Macbeth can't see what he can't see. And the one person who can see what Macbeth can't see is his best friend Banquo, but he has had him assassinated, he is murdered. So, in this crucial moment, um, Macbeth's sense of salience is inadequate. It is not up to the task. It is not up to the job. And because of the kind of psychodrama between Macbeth and his wife, he sort of, you know, turns the car off the cliff and hurtles headlong toward his tragic demise. But Banquo is the one person who could have said, you know, Mac, you're not seeing it clearly. You are not seeing everything. Your landscape of what is real is not real enough. Now this gets super complicated because what role does the imagination play in this unfolding tragedy? What role does ambition play in this unfolding tragedy? Um, but in this crucial moment, who could tell me that the what the witches have told me? Who can tell me if it's real or if it's fake? And of course, Banquo is the one who could tell him what is real and what is fake. And so the question to me, what the tragedy portrays for us is, you know, how can you learn to see things that you can't see? And I think the reason why friendship is so important, and really one of the reasons why I worry about it, and I don't put myself up as some sort of great, exemplum of friendship. I, like everybody else in our world, struggles in this regard. But there is no island. There is no rock, and we kind of want to believe this sort of rugged individualism type lie, but it is just that. There is no island, there is no rock. That we are always limited in our apprehension of what is the real. In other words, our salience landscape is correlated with who we source the real with. And it is through our friendships that we source the real. It is through our relationships in which we source the real. And so this notion of salience, and I would also add this notion of how do we interpret that which we think is real or fake? How do we interpret it so? Now, the tragedy lays it pretty lays it out pretty clearly that interpretation of what is real and what is not real is kind of the most important thing. How we interpret phenomena, how we interpret other people, how we interpret other events is kind of the most important thing with life and death implications. And so who could tell me this ridiculous mistake that I made, right? And when we shrink our world down, when we lose this consciousness Congress, this sort of, those people who help us lay out our salience landscape, we run headlong into, a kind of tragic buzzsaw. Well, so what's the antidote to that? It seems to me that the antidote to that kind of univocal imagination, because what Macbeth, his fate hinges on his inability to sense his inability to sense that there might be more than one interpretation for the things the witches have told him and the things the witches have revealed to him. And of course, they're half truths, they're not entirely true things. And so he seizes on an interpretation that is favorable for his imagination, but in seizing on that univocal uh, interpretation, it means just this, A equals one, and it can only equal one. He fails to see how his inability to imagine alternatively can lead him to the end. And we see, of course, him at the end of the play. He is beheaded by one of the men who he has deeply, deeply wronged. And never in the play, especially once his wife goes insane, he doesn't have anyone to share with. He doesn't have anyone who can remind him that he may not be thinking of everything, he may not be seeing everything. The clarity of his vision is deeply wanting. And the two people who could have told him that, one is sort of ambitious in her own right, and the other you had killed because you were jealous of his potential threat to you. So I think this idea of salience and friendship, revisited here through the lens of Macbeth, is a kind of mini parable or illustration as to the significance of dead reckoning, finding a way to locate ourselves on, not locate, finding a way to kind of find ourselves and land on the real, because it's so easy to lose track of all the various variables that we need in order to navigate successfully. Have you figured in the wind? Have you figured in the current? Have you figured in, uh, you know, all these kinds of things, that you need when you're trying to navigate your way either away from something or towards something. And if we, so we need to do everything we can, it seems, to figure in as many of those variables as possible. Um, and Macbeth is alone at the very end. And I don't think that that's coincidental. I think the fact that he is alone, the fact that he can say, tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow pass on to another day. Life is a tale told by an idiot. Interesting use of the word idiot, one who cannot communicate with another person. Life is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing, meaning nothing. And so when we cut ourselves off from our friendships, we cut ourselves off from salience, we cut ourselves off from the real. And this is, of course, tragic in every way possible. So, anyway, that's my thoughts today on uh, salience and friendship revisited through the lens of Macbeth. Cheers.